I'll never forget that Tuesday morning when I yanked open my bedroom curtains and froze. Right there, sprawled across my driveway like it owned the place, was a shiny silver SUV with a license plate screaming, HOA boss. My stomach sank. I didn't need a crystal ball to know who was behind this. Margaret Hensleyer, as everyone in Crestwood Pines whispered when she wasn't looking. The Queen stood next to her car, arms crossed, her lips curled into a smug little grin that made my blood simmer. Margaret was decked out in her usual suburban war gear. Khaki capris, a polo shirt with the Crestwood Pines HOA logo stitched proudly on the chest, and a clipboard clutched like a scepter. I took a deep breath, swung open my front door, and called out, "Hey, Margaret, I need to get to work. Can you move your car?" She spun toward me, her face twisting into this fake, wide-eyed surprise. "Oh, good morning, Jake Larson," she chirped, her voice dripping with condescension. "I'm in the middle of an official neighborhood inspection. I need documents some. Issues with your property." She waved her hand vaguely at my perfectly saw-mowed lawn. Mind you, all tapping her clipboard like she was judge and jury. This wasn't my first tangle with Margaret. I'd only been in Crestwood Pines for 6 months, drawn by the neat houses and decent prices. What the realtor conveniently forgot to mention was the HOA's iron grip, with Margaret as its self-appointed dictator. From the day I moved in, she'd been on my case, nitpicking everything. My trash cans out too long, my fence painted ivory instead of cream, even my mailbox being a half-inch too tall. Each complaint was pettier than the last, and I was her favorite target, the new guy who hadn't yet bowed to her rulebook. "Margaret, I don't have time for this," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You're blocking my driveway, and I've got a big meeting. Please move your car." Her smirk widened, like she'd been waiting for this moment. "Well, Jake," she said, flipping through her clipboard with a dramatic flourish. "Per HOA bylaws, Section 7, Paragraph 3, residents must uphold neighborhood aesthetics. I've noted several violations here. Your garden statue? 2 inches too tall. That birdhouse? Unapproved design." I clenched my fists, my patience fraying. "Margaret, there's nothing in the bylaws about blocking my driveway. Move your car. Now." Her eyes gleamed with defiance. "As HOA president, I have the authority to conduct inspections to maintain property values and community harmony," she said, while VYing her clipboard like it was the Constitution. I'm not done documenting. By now, a small crowd was forming. Old man Tom from across the street was checking his mailbox for the 3rd time, and the Millers were walking their dog again, their eyes glued to us. Someone's phone was out, recording every second. The air crackled with tension, and Margaret was eating it up. "Margaret, this isn't about the HOA," I said, my voice rising despite myself. "You're trespassing on my property. That's illegal. Move your car, or I'm calling the cops." She threw her head back and laughed aloud, staged cackle that echoed down the street. "The police? For an HOA matter?" she scoffed, turning to the growing audience. "Jake here doesn't get how things work in Crestwood Pines. The HOA saw the law here. We keep this place perfect." The neighbors murmured, some nodding, others filming. My face burned, but I wasn't backing down. "This isn't about your rules," I shot back. "You're breaking the law. Last chance." Margaret's smile vanished. She reached into her purse and pulled out a massive binder labeled Saw Crestwood Pines, HOA Guidelines Saw. "Section 12, Paragraph 7, she declared, her voice booming for the crowd. "Grants the HOA board the right to inspect properties without notice if violations are suspected." And I suspect saw unapproved shrubs, non-regulation window blinds, and that tacky mailbox. I glanced at my watch. I was already late. My meeting was slipping away, and Margaret was turning this into her personal circus. That was it. I'd had enough. "I'm done," I said, pulling out my phone. "I'm calling the police." Margaret's eyes widened for a split second before her smirk returned. "Go ahead," she taunted. "They won't waste their time on this. They know who I am." She turned to the neighbors, raising her voice. "This is what happens when people disrespect our standards. This is why property values tank." I ignored her, dialing 911 and explaining the situation to the dispatcher, who promised to send officers right over. As I hung up, I caught Margaret filming me with her phone. "I'm documenting your harassment," she announced, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Abusing emergency VYCES to intimidate an HOA official? This is going in your file." The neighbors were now a full-on audience, whispering, pointing, recording. I felt like I was in a reality show I never signed up for, but I stood my ground, my heart pounding. 20 minutes later, 2 police cruisers rolled up, their lights flashing. The crowd buzzed as Officers Daniels and Lopez stepped out, eyeing Margaret's SUV and my blocked driveway. Margaret pounced, clipboard and binder in hand. "Officers, thank goodness," she gushed. "I'm conducting official HOA business, and this man's been threatening me for doing my job." Officer Daniels raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, we're here about a blocked driveway. Is it your vehicle?" Margaret blinked, then doubled down. "Yes, but as HOA president, I have the right to—" "Doesn't matter." Officer Lopez cut in, her tone sharp. "You can't block someone's driveway. That's illegal parking and possibly trespassing." Margaret's face turned crimson. "But he's VYOLAting HOA rules," she sputtered, VYing her clipboard at them. "Look at these VYolations." The officers barely glanced at it. "HOA rules are CIVYL matters," Daniels said. "They don't trump city laws. Move your car. Now." Margaret's jaw dropped. "Do you know who I am?" she shrieked. "I've been president for 8 years. I know your precinct captain." The officers exchanged a glance, clearly unimpressed. Then Lopez tapped her phone, her eyes narrowing. "Actually," she said, "records show you don't even live here. Your address is in Maple Grove, outside this HOA's jurisdiction." The crowd gasped, a wave of shock rippling through the neighbors. Margaret's face drained of color. "That's temporary," she stammered. "I still own property here." "Doesn't matter," Daniels said, holding out his hand. "ID, please." Margaret fumbled, handing over her license. Daniels studied it, then nodded. "Confirms you're in Maple Grove. So, you're illegally blocking this man's driveway and saw misrepresenting your authority." Margaret exploded. "This is outrageous. I've dedicated years to this community." Lopez stayed calm. "You need to move your car, or it's getting towed, and you're getting arrested." Margaret crossed her arms, trembling with rage. "I'm not MOVYing. I'm finishing my inspection." Daniel sighed, pulling out his handcuffs. "Margaret Hensley, you're under arrest for trespassing and obstruction." The crowd erupted in gasps as the cuffs clicked around her wrists. Margaret's face twisted in disbelief. "You can't do this," she screamed. "I saw the HOA. I protect property values." Lopez led her to the cruiser, Margaret still yelling about bylaws as the door slammed shut. I stood there, stunned, as Daniels told me the SUV would be towed and apologized for the hassle. The neighbors dispersed, buzzing with gossip. 3 days later, an HOA notice arrived. Margaret was ousted as president after an emergency meeting. She faced charges for trespassing, fraud, and obstruction, with fines up to $5,000 and possible probation. Word spread she'd been suspended from her bank job to a compliance officer of all things. The irony was delicious. The next week, I passed the community board and saw a sign for emergency HOA elections. Taped below was a new bylaw. No HOA official could mess with personal property without written permission. Margaret's reign was over, but her downfall left a mark of warning to anyone drunk on petty power. What do you think? Was I too harsh calling the cops? Or did Margaret get what she deserved? Should HOAs have this much control over neighborhoods? Or are they just breeding ground for power trips? Drop your thoughts below. Hit that like button if you're Team Jake, and subscribe for more wild stories like this.